Chapter 8. The Young Girl Against Communism. The young girl privatizes everything she apprehends. Thus a philosopher is not a philosopher to her, but an extravagant, erotic object. And likewise, a revolutionary is not a revolutionary, but costume jewelry. The young girl is an article of consumption, a device for maintaining order, a producer of sophisticated merchandise, an unprecedented propagator of spectacular codes, an avant-garde of alienation, and also an entertainment. The yes that the young girl says to life expresses only her blind hate when faced with what is superior to time. When the young girl speaks of community, it is always as a last resort the community of the species, or of all living things, that she's thinking of it. She would never have a particular community in mind. After all, she would necessarily be excluded from it. Even when she thinks she is engaging her whole self in a relationship, the young girl is mistaken, because she fails to also engage her nothingness. Thus, her dissatisfaction. Thus, her friends. Because she discovers the world through the eyes of commodities, the young girl sees in beings only what resembles commodities. Conversely, she considers the most personal in herself what is the most generic, coitus. The young girl wants to be loved for who she is, that is, for what isolates her. This is why she always maintains, in the very depths of her ass, an evaluative distance. The young girl epitomizes nothingness, the paradox, and of the tragedy of visibility. The young girl is the privileged vehicle of socio-commodity Darwinism. The continuous pursuit of sex is a manifestation of false substantiality, and truth must not be sought in pleasure, hedonism, the sexual instinct, or any other of the existential content Bloom has so definitively emptied of meaning, but rather in the frenzied search for some connection with a now inaccessible social whole. It is a matter here of giving oneself a feeling of participation, be the exercise of the most generic activity there is, the one that is most intimately linked to the reproduction of the species. This is the reason the young girl is the most common and most sought-after object in this pursuit, because she is the incarnation of the spectacle, or at least she aspires to be. To hear the young girl talk, the question of ultimate ends becomes superfluous. In a general sense, all false substantialities spontaneously earn the young girl's favor. Some, however, are preferred by her. This goes for all the pseudo-identities that can claim biological content: age, sex, height, race, menstruation, health, etc. The young girl postulates an irrevocable intimacy with everything that shares her physiology. Her function is thus to maintain the dying flame of the illusions of immediacy, upon which biopower comes to depend. The young girl is the termite of the material, the marathon runner of the everyday. Domination has made her into the privileged carrier of the ideology of the concrete. Not only does she thrive on easy, simple, real life, but she also considers the abstract, the hassle, as evils it would be judicious to eradicate. Yet what she calls the concrete in itself, in its savage unilateralism, the most abstract. It is the shield of wilted flowers hiding the progress of that for which she has been conceived, the violent negation of metaphysics. Not only does she resent what she doesn't understand, it infuriates her. Her hatred for what is great, for what is beyond the grasp of the consumer, is immeasurable. The young girl uses the concrete to keep herself from succumbing to the metaphysical feelings of her nothingness. Evil is whatever distracts. Franz Kafka. In truth, the love of life, on which the young girl prides herself, is nothing but her hatred of danger. Her pride thus only reveals her determination to maintain immediacy with what she calls life, which more precisely means life in the spectacle. Among all the aporias whose pretentious accumulation constitutes Western metaphysics, the most durable seems to be the formation, by repudiation, of a sphere of bare life. They're supposed to be beyond qualified, political, presentable, human existence, an abject, indistinct, unqualifiable sphere of bare life, reproduction, domestic economy, the maintenance of vital facilities and faculties, heterosexual coupling, or food, all things that they have associated as much as possible with feminine identity, converging in this primordial swamp. Young girls have only redirected the signs of an operation that they have left otherwise unchanged. It is thus that they have forged a very curious species of commonality which they would call the being for life, if they knew that the common point of Western metaphysics has been belatedly identified as the being for death. So much so that young girls have become persuaded that they are united most profoundly by physiology, daily life, psychology, bedroom gossip, and them. The repeated failure of their love affairs, like their friendships, seems incapable of unopening or opening their eyes, nor can it make them see that it is precisely what keeps them apart. Against finitude, the young girl opposes the groaning of her organs. Against solitude, the continuity of the living. And against the tragedy of exposure, the sense that it's good to get noticed. Like the beings that constitute its terms, The relationships that develop in this spectacle are deprived of both content and meaning. If only the lack of meaning so obvious throughout the young girl's life drove her insane. But no, it only leaves her in the state of terminal nonsense. The establishment of these terms is not dictated by actual usage. Strictly speaking, young girls have nothing to do together. Nor is it dictated by their tastes, however unilateral, for one another. Even their tastes do not belong to them, but by symbolic utility alone, which makes each partner a sign of the happiness of the other, the paradisiac completeness that is the spectacle's aim to continuously redefine. Naturally, it is by becoming an argument for total mobilization that seduction has taken the form of the job interview and love, a kind of mutual private employment, with job security for the lucky ones.
Don't worry.
The young girl punishes no betrayal more severely than that of the young girl who deserts the corpse of young girls, or even attempts to free herself from it. The young girl's essential activity not only consists in separating the professional from the personal, the social from the private, the emotional from the useful, the reasonable from the crazy, the everyday from the exceptional, etc., but above all embodying these distinctions in her life. The young girl can well speak of death. She will invariably concede that after all,
That's life.
the young girl loves life, which really means that she hates all forms of life. The young girl is like everything that speaks of love in a society that does everything to render it utterly impossible. She lies in the name of domination. What the young girl's youth designates is nothing but a certain obstinacy in negating finitude. The young girl's ass is a global village. When she speaks of peace and happiness, the young girl's face is that of death. Her negativity is not the spirit, but of the inert. The young girl possesses a singular connection to bare life in all its forms. The young girl has entirely rewritten the book of deadly sins. On the first page she has written, in cute calligraphy,
Solitude.
the young girl swims, holding her breath through imminence.